Cool, AJ. Thanks for taking the time to do this interview. It's cool that you're in Atlanta. I got super excited when I found out that you also are a founder building on no code, and you've grown your business to do what I think is a pretty significant amount of traction in terms of revenue and customer acquisition. So I was just super excited to meet you. And yeah, I wanted to do this interview to learn more about your journey, how you even came about, coming up with this idea of yours, why you chose no code, and then maybe how no code helped you get the traction that you have today. And we can inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs to do something similar. So yeah, thanks for taking the time.
Thanks. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
First thing I want to ask is tell us who you are, what your background is, and what you're working on.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm the co-founder of ProLine. We're a CRM platform for roofing contractors. We're a big focus for us is automation. So it's kind of in the name, ProLine. The core that our platform is built around is phone communication, calling, texting, and we've built everything back off of that. But now we have a lot of different functionality from quoting, project management, budgeting, business analytics, everything built into one platform to help roofers run their business from start to finish in one single place. And so we've been working on this. We're going on 3 years now since we initially started to work on this, but or at least started the company because we started the company in January of 2021. But the reality is this has been almost 10-year journey because I met my co-founder in 2016, and we started working. I was originally a marketing consultant when I was at UGA. And so I was doing small business marketing, and now co-founder was one of my first clients. So I took over his website, took over his marketing, and we had a really, really good working relationship where he would bring me problems. And he's a roofing contractor. So this is his roofing contracting business in Athens, Georgia. And so he would bring me problems in his business, things he was frustrated about, and then I would find ways to solve those problems. The problems he was bringing me were things like I'd keep losing leads, like leads come in, I don't get to them for a couple days, and then by the time I get to them, they've gone with somebody else or they don't answer. Or also, hey, I send a quote to somebody and then I never hear back, and I don't have time to follow up with them myself. So these are the types.
So you literally were talking to your customers, like this was somebody who had a problem and they were talking to you about the problems that they were having, and you had not built out any of the product.
This is long before we were building any product.
Were you working in the roofing industry or you just knew this person?
This is my now co-founder, and he hired me as his marketing person for his consulting business to take over, to run his website, his SEO, did some stuff with his social media as well. So I was just his marketing guy that he had hired, local marketing guy. And we just had that two-way communication where, he's telling me, hey, these are things that I'm frustrated with in my business. And I'm listening. And instead of just being like, oh, I don't do that. In my mind, I was like, oh, these are things that he's frustrated with. These are problems. These are limitations, and potentially things that I can find ways to either solve to make more money, and or things that if I can solve, it's going to keep him around as a customer longer. So I just kept sort of experimenting. The first versions of ProLine that I built for him were just built in Zapier. Like I just building out Zapier connections with MailChimp, Twilio, and stuff, and setting up these automations for lead response and for lead nurture and for sales follow-up, just like linking it all together. And it was a huge mess and it barely worked. But after doing that, within the first year after I set that up, actually within about 3 months, his close rate had doubled. So he was closing twice as many leads as he was previously. So that translates to a lot of additional money when you're talking about roofs, and roofs are anywhere from $10,000 to sometimes $30,000-$40,000 projects. So
damn, talk about high ticket.
Yeah. So it was a huge win. And it was, this very broken solution, but it was so much better than just not having anything that it had a massive impact. So I actually worked with him on that solution, trying to find ways. I was doing things like, okay, well, what if when the person responds, I send you an email, and then if you respond to the email, it sends back a text message, like all kinds of weird backward solutions, trying to make that Zapier setup work. And we did that for 2-3 years. That we just dialed in, played with the templates, played with the messaging, and I just worked with him only for that period of time. Didn't work with anybody else, didn't try to scale it, didn't try to build out any kind of product. and we just dialed it in. We just dialed in the messaging, the setup, and it had a really big impact on his ability to close jobs and scale his roofing business. And then it was during COVID, that him and I sort of realized, oh, we have something really powerful that we've built. Why don't we build this into a software platform that other roofers could use as well? Let's find ways to. Originally, I was just going to do the same thing I'd done for him and just like rebuild it in different people's Zapier accounts. I was like, that's going to be a lot of work for every company. My path to software was all about just how do I scale this solution? I already had the solution. I knew what the solution was. How do I scale it? So I didn't go to software because like, I want a software company. It was like, oh, I have this solution to a problem. How do I make this scalable so that I'm not having to spend 50, 100 hours to implement it in each new company? How can I set it up so that companies can just start using it? I have a somewhat technical background in that. Like I know HTML, CSS, a little bit of JavaScript from the website design stuff that I'd done and website work I'd done, but I'm not a software developer, definitely not a full stack developer. I have no idea how to do backend development, but I started to look.
But I have a quick question. Would you say that you learned like the fundamentals of backend development by learning a no-code tool like Zapier, where you're like hooking together APIs, dealing with like inputs and outputs?
I think it was
because like that's a lot of business logic. I'd love to hear about that.
I think I wouldn't even really consider that backend as much as like API. I understood it was a good primer because I understood the logic behind interactions through APIs, because that's all really Zapier is just, they have an API with Twilio, they have an API with integration with MailChimp, and it's just you're just building API connections, but you're doing it all visually. So that is definitely it helped prime my thinking around how to set stuff like that up for sure.
Makes sense.
So I started searching. It was like the end of 2020, like height of COVID. I started searching for a way to build this out and that was scalable. And I started looking at, and I think honestly, I got hit with an ad for Bubble because I remember kind of searching it on Google. Somehow I already knew. So I think they had hit me with ads or something. I didn't click on an ad, but I remember knowing about them already. And so I went to Google, search Bubble, and I looked at a couple other things, but at least at the time, like they have some really serious competitors now, but everybody else I looked at in 2020 was just not comparable. So, because I was primarily looking for a desktop application to build I wasn't even thinking about mobile yet. And so found Bubble. I went through one of their programs. So I paid, I think it was $750 to be part of a boot camp. And that was really helpful. That really accelerated.
Oh, that is cool.
Yeah. I'm glad that I did that. I made really good friends with the instructor, who is now one of our advisors for ProLine. And
that's super, super cool.
Yeah. So, and then it was the process from 2021 to 2020. We launched, late August of 2021. So
how long did it take you to build the product?
January to August. So what is that? 6-7 months?
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah.
That's pretty damn good. And you did it all yourself?
Yeah.
That's really impressive, man.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So just building in Bubble, got there. The first version was really rough, so there was a lot of iteration. We launched the first version, and that was very far from where we are now. That was not even a CRM. That was just an automation tool. We would integrate with other people, with other CRMs. And we've just been slowly doing that iteration cycle, taking in feedback, iterating, going back to our customers.
There you go.
Just doing that nonstop.
The first product you launched was like your MVP. It was pretty much like the whole string of Zaps. You turned that into a product, and that was your MVP?
Correct. Yeah.
Or I guess you could say that's your alpha, because your MVP was the Zaps, and that was kind of like your alpha product. I'm not sure.
Yeah. It was like the Zap was almost like a proof of concept, right? And then MVP, minimal viable product, and that we could resell the same thing to more than one person would have been that first. So I would have considered that.
That makes sense.
We kept the biggest iteration we've done was iterating out from just being an add-on platform, automation platform, into the CRM. So we just did that. We just finished that August 1st. So we just relaunched as a full CRM platform. And that was a big jump. So in some ways, I feel like we had relaunch. Basically, we relaunched as a second MVP, but as a CRM platform. We still have all the functionality we had before, but it was such a big jump in functionality that it's like sometimes I feel like we started over in a way, because it was more than just an iteration. It was really more of a pivot entirely into being a full CRM platform. But that's where we are now. We're a full CRM platform, and we're just moving as fast as we can.
Nice. So what I want to highlight is the fact that you partnered up with somebody who ran a business, a roofing business, and you literally were his sidekick. You were like, tell me all your problems. I'm going to take all your problems and I'm going to productize it, because there's definitely more roofing businesses that are just like you having these same problems. And like, you started the interview with this, but you focused on phone because you knew that phone was what those people were doing. When I'm out in the field and I'm roofing, like the only thing I got on me is probably a phone. And when I think of roofers, I'm probably thinking it's like old school phones too. Like they don't even want to have like crazy iPhones. They just need a phone to, take calls, give quotes, talk to their teammates, call, for equipment. So I think the unique insight that you had was phone. All these other CRMs are probably way too like technical, email and invoicing and payments. And you were like, we got to double down on phone. Does that sound like correct?
Yeah, to a certain extent. The other CRMs are some of them have started implementing some text messaging functionality, but none of them have a full phone system built in. And that's really important, because it's even less about the contractors. They do like communicating by phone, but it's more about the homeowners that they're serving. Homeowners want to text with contractors. They don't mind getting emails, and maybe for like documents and stuff, like for a record, email is good, but it's so much more effective from text with a homeowner. You're going to get much more likely to get through to them, much more likely to get a response. And then the homeowners, like, they want to know if the work is being done on their house, a roof's getting replaced. They don't want you emailing them about the progress. They want to get a text message that tells them how it's going. They want updates by text, because it's an important, massive part of their home that's like very sensitive. People are very sensitive about their home, especially something that's going to expose their home to the elements for as long as that job is going on. Like, that's something. So because of that, it's really the homeowners that want to get texted, and the other CRMs, they shied away from texting. And here's the complicated part is, like, if you add texting but not calling, well, then now you're texting through a different phone number than the phone number that you're going to call someone through. Because you can't have them. You have to have, if you're going to have it where it's all unified through a single number, then you have to have a single number that does everything, the calling, the texting, and you have to be able to use that number as an actual work phone number. So we, from day one, were that full phone platform from day one that allowed a very seamless communication. That way, when we're automating text messaging, or if you send a text message to the platform, it's just all very seamless. And the other platforms, they either don't have text messaging, or their text messaging solutions are like add-ons that you can't call through the numbers. It's a mess. And so that's really the opportunity that we saw, is like this. And it's very hard for them to go back and rebuild their platforms to work the way we have. But we started with the phone system and built from there. And everything. So, like, for example, our quoting tools, when you send a quote, it does get sent by email, but it gets sent by text message. And that's typically where the homeowner is going to click on that link and sign that quote.
That makes perfect sense. No, super, super cool. So it was about the homeowners and the roofing contractors. That makes perfect. And again, like you.
Well, I was going to say, that's all from me communicating through, or with him communicating to me, hey, my customers want to text with me, and I don't have a good way to do that. I don't have a good way to do that meshes with my CRM platform, or that I can automate.
Right.
And so it was all about building around him.
And you knew from the start that, hey, there are going to be way more businesses just like you. Like, did you have that mentality as you were working?
No, I think if I had, I would have tripped myself up a lot more. I think part of the I think part of the success I think a part of the traction and the reason it's worked is because we spent years. I was not thinking, how do I build this for other people? I was only thinking about, how do I get it right for John, this guy, this one guy. And I spent years doing that, like 2 to 3 years, where I had never once thought, oh, this is going to be a product I'm going to resell. I thought a little bit, maybe it's something I can stack onto my agency services, but I definitely was not thinking about building it as a software platform or scaling it up. I don't think that necessarily required, but I do think it was better, because when we came into this, when I was building the software, I knew exactly what I needed to build, because we had been working on it for so long and we had already figured out a lot of kinks. It really set me up when I went to go build the software, where I wasn't like staring at a screen like, I don't know how to do this. All right, I knew exactly how it worked in his business, and so it was just a matter of like translating that into Bubble. So I think this is something that I see entrepreneurs mess up on sometimes, is like they want to rush to scale, because everyone's like, oh, let me just build this software company, and like I'll raise money in a year, and then I'll exit in 3 years, and then I'll be on with my life. Absolutely, right? Everyone's trying to go fast, and so there's no patience, and they're not taking the time to really understand the problem or understand their market. Yeah, I think that is a really big pitfall at the beginning. Is like, be really patient, especially at the beginning, and really get to know that market, that problem, that customer, and how to solve it. And it's not just about getting to know them and then solving it. It's about getting to know them, solving it, implementing that solution in a way that is low cost, that's quick, and then seeing the results and like that iteration. But you have to do that early. And you have to do it without rushing to scale. Everyone wants to like, I don't know. I think that's always a mistake.
Everyone wants to get to like 10K AR or MRR and like quit their jobs. And it's like, if you can get it right for one person, you can get it right for two. And then from 2 to 5, from 5 to 10, once you get it right for 10, you can definitely get it right for 100. But like each step of that is very, very difficult. And they all come with their own constraints and their own challenges.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, even with us at Ambitious Labs, like we've been trying to build this education business for over a year. It took us a really long time to figure out what are the real pain points of our people? How do they like to communicate? What language do they use? What are they doing in their lives outside of building, right? I totally agree. And it could take up to a year. And for you, it took many, many years. But for us, it's definitely taken over a year and we're barely scratching the surface. But I totally agree. I like that insight. I guess, when did you take on customer number 2 then? Like, so you had a customer number 1, and then what did customer number 2 look like, and how much did you charge that person?
That was in August. We onboarded a second company right away. I don't think we were charging any kind of onboarding fees at that point. And our pricing really hasn't changed. We launched at, I believe, $297. I think we just stuck with that. We launched with that and it just ended up being kind of perfect. It was a base $297, and then we've always charged extra depending on how many users you have, because each user gets their own phone number.
Okay.
So the original pricing, it's changed. It's definitely gone up, but the original pricing was $37 per additional user plus the $297. So like our average has always been around like $350 a month. That was on the original. It's gone up now. So our average is more like $450 now, because we're currently charging $57 a month per additional user, but we also have so much more functionality. So it's honestly a steal. We're probably going to be doing some price raising next year because all of our providers are raising our costs.
So you're saying $300 a month. Are you still charging $300 a month base, or did you go up?
We still have, like, we just brought someone on the other day and they're paying us $297 a month for just themselves.
Wow.
It's one-man show.
So after a quick Google search, I'm seeing that, I'm not sure what you think the market size is, but it says there are more than 100,000 roofing businesses in the United States. I think that's low. It's a lot more than 100,000.
So I think it's less. I think that's probably looking at a lot of inactive, like Google My Business profiles and stuff. Active operating roofing contractors in the U.S. and Canada, based on our research, is a little over 90,000 for the U.S. and Canada, which is our market. Anyone with a +1 area code on phone numbers.
Okay.
Now, if you just look at how many companies are out there, it's going to be higher. There's definitely more. But as far as like active operating businesses, probably more than 90,000. But there might be, between the U.S. and Canada, there might be like 130, 140,000 total, which, I mean, it's a pretty big number. So
yeah, absolutely.
And this is why we've chosen to stick with roofing contractors. Maybe we might eventually expand out, but we're not going to worry about it until we have like 5,000 plus.
Because like your wedge market is roofing, but I'm sure there's tangential markets for the home space that act in the same way: plumbing, flooring, heating, air conditioning, HVAC, solar. Like, so you think about 90,000 for one niche, identify 10 niches. Okay, now we're at 900,000. And so if you guys could over time capture, say, 1,000 businesses of that 900,000, and you're charging 3,600 a year, now you guys are doing 3.6 million ARR. That's a pretty solid number, especially if your team is lean.
Yeah.
Now you're sitting on a really, really, really profitable business and something that's worth probably in the 8 figures plus.
Yeah, that's the idea.
That's awesome, man.
The idea. So yeah, we're just shy of 300,000 ARR. Maybe almost 24K MRR.
How many people on the team?
4. If it was just me, I'd be racking it. But it's definitely not just me. This is not possible.
Yeah.
Just me. There's 4. We have a head of sales, Don, head of customer success, Edward, and then my co-founder, who's part-time, but he does a lot of community engagement in the roofing community. And once everyone gets paid, there's nothing. There's not much left. But
sure,
we're on the path.
You're still building an asset. It's working, right? And it's generating revenue. It's worth something for sure. There's a huge market ahead of you. You probably haven't taken VC money. It sounds like you're bootstrapping it.
Yeah, we really strongly worked towards taking on funding last year. And we were very put off by the VC mindset. Like, when you really get down, I don't know, have you ever raised funding or talked to a lot of VCs before?
Absolutely, yeah, for sure.
You've raised funding in the past?
Yeah, so we raised money from investors for Ambitious Labs, and then for previous ventures too. I was part of the fundraising process, yeah.
Are you raising from VCs or angels?
From angels, and I think that's very important to talk about right now.
Yeah.
For Ambitious Labs, we took on money from angels. From previous businesses, we properly raised from institutional investors, and the mindset is totally different. Like, if I could speak on it for a second, angels are happy to see a business that I just described to you, 3 million ARR, worth $20 million. They're way happy with that. VCs, they're like 3 million ARR. No, that's not for us. We want to see 100 million ARR, $1 billion exit. So the mindset of the VC and the angels is totally different. And that's what we coach our entrepreneurs on too. Like, hey, don't go waste your time trying to cold email every top tier VC in the world if you don't have a $1 billion idea or you're not an experienced founder. And everyone thinks they have a $1 billion idea, but those founders who VCs like to talk to have traction, building in winner take all categories, or those founders are very, very experienced. So that was our mentality. We thought we wanted to build ambitious labs from money from VCs, and we wanted to build like the next unicorn edtech platform. But then after going and talking to a bunch of VCs, they were like, hey, this is not the next Duolingo, we don't want in. But I was like, hey, I just want to build a business that can do 2 to 5 million annually. And I want to live a great life. I want to employ 20 people who can also live great lives. That's the type of business I'm happy with. And so the mindset's totally different. I'm sure you can relate.
No, that is spot on. I mean, the one thing, biggest eye opener to me is I had some VCs kind of let me in on the numbers behind the VC model. So like, yes, they are looking for $1 billion businesses. They're trying to find and invest in $1 billion businesses, but there's this illusion that entrepreneurs have that I definitely had that was like, oh, I want to work with them because I want $1 billion business and they can help me get there because that's what they have experience with. That's what they're trying to get to. But the reality, when you look at the numbers, is they do not know how to build $1 billion businesses. What they do is they invest in 100 businesses that all are trying to get to $1 billion. 99 of them fail spectacularly, like completely fails, go under, have to let go of all their people. Like their products cease to exist because they tried to, the VCs forced them to scale too quickly. These are a lot of these are businesses that could have been amazing 3 million, 5 million, 10 million ARR businesses if they had scaled at a reasonable rate. But instead, the VCs push money into them, burn them into the ground, pushing them too fast. And then one of those 100 companies will actually survive that scaling trajectory and become $1 billion business.
Absolutely.
And then that's all the VCs will talk about is that one business, and they'll put that front, be like, this is one of our portfolio companies, and they use that to raise more from their VCs probably going to listen to this and be like, oh, that's wrong. I have 5 out of my 100. And it's like, great that you have 5, but you still have 95 or 90 or like this massive percentage of the companies that are actually failing because of the model. Those are businesses that may or may not have failed and may have been very successful had they scaled. When I understood that, it made me decide that I was not, like my co-founder and I both we talked about this ad nauseum, and we came to the conclusion that we have no interest in raising from VCs, not just for this company, probably never in the future either. And we're only interested, if we ever raise, it will only be from angels that understand what we're building, understand what we're looking to build.
Yeah.
Because we're targeting, we would love to target an exit at over 50 million, somewhere between 50 to 100 million. That's where we're targeting.
Absolutely.
That is like, we were telling VCs that, and they would just immediately be like, oh, we're not interested. And it's a massive business. And like you're saying, like if you can stay lean, it's great. It's just not what VCs are looking for.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think this concept of building a business that's worth 10 to 50 million in the B2B space, especially in a space like yours, is very, very possible. Like we just did the numbers. Businesses like yours will sell between 4 and 10x gross revenue with a good growth rate, with a good niche, with a good product. And so if you can get your business, to do, say, 3 million annually, you can definitely put it in the market for 50 million. I'm sure you'd get a bunch of offers, but I think 50 million is a pretty aggressive valuation. But you would be able to justify that because you're in a tight niche, you have a great product, good retention, and that's what people should be focused on. And plus, if it's a lean team, it only takes 8 people to run, your revenue per employee is insanely high. So when you think about someone like, I don't know, a Home Depot or like, that's the first one that comes to my mind, but like a large company with billions of dollars injecting their resources, they can take your business from 3 million to 30 million just with their resources. So I totally agree. And that's the same mentality that we have at Ambitious Labs. Like we want to build a lean business. We did take on like angel money, but we still consider ourselves semi-bootstrapped in a way because we're prioritizing cash flow. We don't prioritize like burning all this money to find product market fit and going back to the market to raise a seed. We took on this money and we have a very, very, very strict plan of, hey, we need to get to revenue neutral by X amount of time. And we've been like that from day one. So we're kind of operating like a small business in the beginning with hopes of getting to that medium-sized kind of revenue. So I think we're both kind of aligned.
Yeah, I prefer the path of building a real business and not just a money pit that you hope someday turns into something else. There's a place for that. There's a place for those types of businesses. And it's like, people are like, oh, well, you can't build mass. I mean, look at MailChimp. MailChimp, bootstrap business. They built a real business from day one, profitable cash flowing business, and it's $1 billion business, right? There's other examples that can be done, you definitely don't have to go down that churn and burn approach.
Cool. It sounds like this is a great fit for a no-code built business. Like you built on Bubble. We obviously are big Flutterflow champions at Ambitious Labs, but the point's still the same. They're both incredibly powerful no-code builders. I think you could have built ProLine on Flutterflow or Bubble.
Does Flutterflow have?
But the point is that
can you build good desktop applications on Flutterflow?
So desktop, yes. Good is getting there. Because Flutter was mainly built to be native as a native language, but Google does know that if they want to compete with React, that they got to step up their web game. So they are, and Flutter is continuously getting better for web. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's like you can't use it. We built our whole learning platform in Flutterflow, and it's a whole web-based thing. We don't even offer a mobile app, and it works really, really well.
Nice.
But yeah, the point is that like these types of businesses that you can build on no code, you were able to stay extremely close to your customer. You were able to stay extremely close to your guy. Like I'm sure you and your business partner were in the same room. He's telling you the features that he wants you to build, and you're literally right in front of him building it, and he's right in front of his customer who's about to use that exact feature. So that's like the tightest development workflow you can ever imagine. Large companies who raise millions of dollars, they don't even have that type of workflow.
Not even close.
And so without no code, like you as someone who didn't know how to code can now like be extremely tight knit and build products fast. So it's awesome. When I heard about your story, man, I was just stoked because you're much more farther along than a lot of our students are today. But with discipline, with time, and with the right strategy and the right mindset, you can get to where you are for sure.
Oh yeah. It's the persistence. That's the key. Even though the way I think about it is no code doesn't necessarily make building a business easier, but it does allow you to build a better business with a lot less resources. I don't know if that makes sense. Like it's still going to be hard. It's still going to take time.
It's going to be hell.
But
yeah, absolutely.
It's like for me with Bubble, I've been able to build something that through a normal development path would have cost hundreds of thousands of dollars in a team of normal developers working on that to build what I've built. And I've been able to build it on my own for essentially no cost other than my time. And I'm able to keep pace because we have direct competitors, and in the roofing space specifically, there's other dedicated roofing CRMs, and I'm able to keep pace with their development teams. They're out there raising money. They're raising $10 million rounds, and they have teams of developers that are doing normal coding, and I'm keeping pace or surpassing their development, their speed of development. It's because of the way that I'm building.
Makes perfect sense. Cool, man. Well, look, this was really, really fun. I think we went a lot over time because there was a ton of really cool value in Norris. Thanks for taking the time.